branded the ugly, high school grad and cast out by my own family. 10 years later, I ran into them at my sister's wedding. Her husband asked, "You know her?" I replied, "More than you can imagine." They called me the ugly duckling, not worth their time or their love. 10 years ago, my own family disowned me, pushing me out into the world with nothing but a broken heart and a burning determination. Now, I'm standing outside my sister Heather's lavish wedding, and they have no idea who I am yet. Oh, the look on their faces when they finally connect the dots. That, my friends, is going to be absolutely priceless. My heart is pounding against my ribs right now. I'm Brianna Miller, 38 years old, and a decade ago, my family, the perfect Miller family from Greenwich, Connecticut, decided I was a lost cause. An embarrassment. They never expected to see me again, especially not as the woman I am today. And honestly, my sister's face when she spotted me across the room? Pure gold. Her new husband, he had no idea who I was, which just made what happened next all the more satisfying. Let me take you back. Growing up in Greenwich, Connecticut, wasn't just about wealth. It was about status, appearances, and maintaining a flawless facade. Our colonial house, with its manicured lawn and perfect white picket fence, was a physical manifestation of what my parents, Catherine and Richard Miller, wanted our family to be: impeccable. My mother was the quintessential socialite, always styled to perfection, her smile a practiced accessory for country club gatherings. My father, a prominent investment banker, measured his pride by his connections and the impression his family made. Then there were Heather and me. The contrast between us was stark, and it was never subtle. Heather, my older sister, inherited my mother's effortless beauty, tall, slender, with flowing blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She charmed everyone. Homecoming queen, straight A's, tennis captain, she was the perfect daughter, a source of endless pride for my parents. I, on the other hand, was the disappointment. While Heather flourished, I battled severe acne, wore thick braces, and carried 20 extra pounds that I hid in baggy clothes. My mousy brown hair never behaved, and my glasses perpetually slid down my nose. Family functions were excruciating. Relatives would gush over Heather, then turn to me with that pitying look that spoke volumes. "Brianna, why can't you put some effort into your appearance like your sister?" My mother would sigh, lipstick in hand. "Impressions are everything." My father, less direct but equally wounding, would comment, "Your sister's already been accepted to 3 Ivy League schools. What are your plans again?" This, despite my straight A's in advanced math and science, achievements that simply never registered with him. The constant comparisons were relentless. "Look at how Heather carries herself. Notice how everyone gravitates to your sister." The message was painfully clear. I was lacking in every way that mattered to them. There were rare, almost painful glimpses of what a supportive family could be. My father patiently teaching both of us to swim. Christmas mornings where the pressure of appearances momentarily faded. But these brief moments only made the suffocation of reality worse, showing me what we could have been if appearances hadn't been everything. School was no different. Heather collected friends like trophies. I ate lunch alone, buried in books about computer programming. Coding spoke to me. In that world, skill and logic were everything, not how you looked or who your family was. I started teaching myself at 14, creating simple games in my bedroom while Heather hosted sleepovers downstairs. "Nobody cares about computers, Brianna," my mother once scoffed, finding me hunched over my laptop. "You should be focusing on social skills. That's what gets you ahead." The one person who truly saw me was my grandmother, Eleanor. Unlike my parents, she valued substance over style. During summer visits to her modest Vermont home, I could breathe. She listened to my excited coding explanations with genuine interest. "You have a brilliant mind, Brianna," she'd say, her weathered hand squeezing mine. "Some people won't see it because they're blinded by the surface, but never doubt your worth." Those summers were my oxygen, sustaining me. She showed me old photos of herself, conventionally plain, but with fierce intelligence in her eyes. "Beauty fades," she'd tell me, "but brilliance only grows stronger with time." I clung to those words through endless family dinners where I was barely acknowledged. I retreated further into my code, creating value where my family saw none. Little did I know how prophetic her words would be, or how drastically my life was about to change. High school solidified the canyon between Heather and me. While she floated through the hallways surrounded by admirers, I became invisible, or worse, a target. Ridgeview High ran on the same currency as my home, appearances and social status. I had neither. My junior year, the bullying escalated. A group of girls, led by Heather's friend Amanda, created a Brianna Watch social media account, posting unflattering photos with brutal captions. The worst part, seeing my sister's username in the list of followers. When I confronted her, Heather just rolled her eyes. "It's just a joke, Brianna. You're so sensitive. Maybe if you made an effort." Her words were a chilling echo of our mothers. The pinnacle of humiliation arrived during Heather's graduation party. Our backyard was a magazine-worthy celebration. Fairy lights, catered food, a small band. Everyone who mattered in Greenwich was there. I had spent hours trying to tame my frizzy hair, cover my acne, even bought a new navy dress. For once, I just wanted to feel like I belonged. Standing near the punch bowl, I overheard Amanda and her friends. "God, what is she wearing? It's like she doesn't even try." Then Heather's voice, slightly lower, but unmistakable. "You guys, stop. It's not her fault she got the bad genes." They erupted in laughter. The punch cup shook in my hand, tears threatening to spill. But the real gut punch came next. My mother walked up to their circle. Instead of defending me, she just smiled tightly. "Heather, sweetheart, the Andersons just arrived. Come say hello." Not a word about their cruelty, not even an acknowledgement that I existed. I fled to my bedroom, crying until my eyes were swollen. That night, everything became crystal clear. I would never be good enough for this family, not as I was. Despite the emotional turmoil, I threw myself into academics with renewed fervor. If I couldn't be beautiful by their standards, I would be brilliant. My coding projects grew more sophisticated, earning recognition from my computer science teacher, Mr. Lambert. "You have a natural talent for this," he told me. "Stanford's computer science program would be lucky to have you." When the Stanford acceptance letter arrived, complete with a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. For once, I had achieved something even Heather hadn't. She'd settled for Yale, my father's alma mater. Foolishly, I imagined this might finally earn their respect. I presented the letter at dinner, hands trembling. "Stanford," my father said, barely glancing at it. "That's in California, so far away. They have the best computer science program," I explained. "And they're offering a scholarship." "Partial scholarship," my mother corrected, frowning. "We'd still have to pay quite a bit. It's an investment in my future." I choked out. My father put down his fork. "Brianna, let's be realistic. College is expensive, and we need to prioritize investments that will pay off." "What does that mean?" I asked, a cold dread creeping in. "It means," my mother interjected, "that we need to consider the likelihood of success. Heather has clear potential. She's socially adept, presents herself well, has the right connections. These things matter in the real world. And my academic achievement doesn't." My voice cracked. "Don't be dramatic," my father sighed. "We're simply saying that investing in your sister's law school makes more financial sense than sending you across the country for a computer hobby." "It's not a hobby," I protested, tears falling. "I've been accepted to one of the best programs in the world." "Brianna," my mother said coldly, "look at you now. Emotional, disheveled, making a scene. Do you really think you're prepared for the professional world? You can barely make it through a family dinner." The words struck like physical blows. But what came next was the final, devastating cut. "Let's be honest," my father said, his voice flat. "You're the ugly duckling of this family, and no college degree is going to change that. In our world, presentation matters. Connections matter. You simply don't have what it takes." The room fell silent. Even Heather looked uncomfortable. "Richard," my mother murmured, not in objection to his cruelty, but to his bluntness. My legs shaking, I stood up slowly. "So that's it? I'm not worth investing in because I'm not pretty enough." "We're being practical," my father replied. "Maybe try community college. See if you can improve yourself." I left the table without another word, locking myself in my bedroom. Through my tears, the decision solidified. I would never beg for their approval again. The next day, Grandma Eleanor called, somehow sensing my despair. When I told her everything through sobs, she was silent for a long moment. "Pack your things," she finally said. "Come to the bank tomorrow at noon. I have something for you." She'd been saving for years, she told me, as she handed me a cashier's check for $20,000. "I always knew you might need an escape fund," her eyes fierce with love. "This was meant for my retirement, but you need it more. Go to California. Become who you're meant to be." I hugged her, both of us crying. "I'll pay you back every penny," I promised. "Just succeed," she whispered. "That's all the repayment I need." 2 days later, I left with one suitcase and my laptop. I didn't say goodbye. Instead, I left a note, "Going to become someone you'll regret dismissing." I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. Seattle in September was nothing like Connecticut. The constant drizzle felt fitting for my mood as I settled into the cheapest apartment I could find, a tiny studio with a hot plate, shared with 2 other girls, in a building that perpetually smelled of damp laundry. Stanford had been the dream, but reality had different plans. The University of Washington had offered me a last-minute spot with a decent financial aid package when I explained my situation. Those months tested every ounce of my resolve. I worked mornings at a coffee shop, evenings waiting tables, weekends doing data entry, all while carrying a full course load in computer science. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Some nights, curled on my thin mattress, city sounds filtering through paper-thin walls, I wondered if my father had been right. Maybe I didn't have what it takes. My roommates, Lynn, a biochemistry major, and Dakota, an art student, became my unexpected friends. They witnessed my darkest moments, like when my partial tuition payment was due, and I was still $1,000 short. "You've barely eaten all week," Lynn observed, pushing a plate of homemade dumplings toward me. My stomach growled in betrayal. "Take the food," Dakota said firmly. "And take this." She handed me a flyer for a coding competition with a $2,000 prize. "Your weird robot programs are good. You should enter." I almost didn't. The voice in my head, suspiciously like my mother's, whispered that I'd embarrass myself. But desperation proved stronger than doubt. The competition required creating an algorithm for optimizing urban traffic flow. I worked on it for 72 straight hours, fueled by vending machine coffee. When I presented my solution, my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my laptop. But as I explained my approach, something strange happened. People listened. The judges asked questions that indicated genuine interest, not pity. I didn't win first place, but my third-place finish came with a $1,000 prize and something far more valuable, validation from people who understood the field. One of the judges, Professor Morgan, approached me afterward. "Your solution showed remarkable insight," she said, her sharp gray eyes behind round glasses. "Especially for a freshman. Are you planning to specialize in algorithm development?" For the first time, someone was asking about my mind, not my appearance. The sensation was so novel, it took me a moment to respond. Professor Morgan became my mentor, recommending me for research assistantships and introducing me to Seattle's growing tech scene. Under her guidance, I began to see my potential through her eyes, not my family's. "The tech industry needs minds like yours," she told me. "Creative, resilient, and unafraid to challenge conventional approaches." By the end of my freshman year, I'd secured a summer internship at a small security software company. The pay wasn't much, but the experience was invaluable. I felt myself growing, not just as a programmer, but as a person. Finally, I was in an environment where my appearance was irrelevant compared to what I could create. My social circle expanded gradually, introducing me to people who valued substance over style. My study group, Aiden, Zoe, and Marcus, became true friends who never made me feel self-conscious. With them, I was simply Brianna, the coding whiz, not Brianna, the family disappointment. "You think differently than anyone I've ever met," Aiden told me once. "It's like your brain finds pathways the rest of us don't even see." Physical changes came slowly, almost without my noticing. The constant stress that had exacerbated my acne began to ease as I found my place. Walking everywhere because I couldn't afford bus fare toned my body naturally. One day, Dakota insisted on cutting my hair, transforming my unruly mane into a stylish bob that actually suited my face. "See," she said, spinning me toward the mirror. You were hiding behind all that hair. I barely recognized myself. Not because I had suddenly become beautiful by conventional standards, but because confidence had begun to illuminate my features from within. During my junior year, I met Jordan at a hackathon, tall, with kind brown eyes and a quick laugh. He was the person who made my heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with anxiety. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared interests. "I like how your mind works," he told me on our first date, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear with a gentleness that made me shiver. "You see solutions where others see obstacles." The first time we kissed, standing on the rooftop of his apartment building with Seattle's skyline glittering around us, I felt a healing I hadn't known I needed. Here was someone who saw me, really saw me, and liked what he saw. My graduation came with highest honors and multiple job offers. Professor Morgan beamed like a proud parent as I crossed the stage. My roommates cheered loudly enough to make up for the absence of my family. I had done it, transformed from the girl who wasn't worth investing into a woman with a future bright enough to require sunglasses, as Dakota joked. The only shadow on this new life was the news that my grandmother, Eleanor, had passed away peacefully in her sleep. The woman who had believed in me when no one else did hadn't lived to see my success. I cried for days, grief mixing with guilt that I hadn't visited more often. She knew. Jordan comforted me. People who love us that way always know. What stung almost as much as her loss was discovering that no one in my family had thought to contact me. I learned of her death through a Facebook message from her neighbor, not from my parents or sister. The final proof, if I needed it, that I had been truly erased from the family narrative. Standing in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I made a silent promise to my grandmother. Her investment in me would continue to grow. This was just the beginning. My career began at Vertex Security, a mid-sized cybersecurity firm. I started as a junior developer, a small cog, but I was determined to make an impact. The tech industry, I quickly discovered, could be as appearance-focused as Greenwich, just with different metrics. Here, women were often judged not by beauty, but by whether they fit the programmer stereotype. My gender made me an outlier. My innovative thinking made me a threat to some. "Your approach is interesting but unnecessarily complex," a senior developer named Greg commented during my code review, despite my solution being more efficient. It became a pattern, my ideas dismissed, my contributions minimized. Instead of retreating, I channeled my grandmother's resilience. I documented everything, built flawless test cases, and let results speak for themselves. 6 months in, I identified a critical vulnerability in our flagship product during an internal security audit. This could potentially expose client data, I explained in the team meeting, presenting my findings methodically. I've developed a patch that addresses it without compromising performance. The room fell silent. The CTO, Rachel Chun, studied me with newfound interest. "Implement it," she said simply. "And I want you on the security audit team moving forward." That moment marked a turning point. Under Rachel's mentorship, I flourished. She taught me not just technical skills, but how to navigate corporate politics. Lessons my family's social training could never have provided. "In this industry, you'll always face resistance," she told me over coffee. "Some because you're young, some because you're a woman. Your job isn't to make them comfortable. It's to be so good they can't ignore you." By my second year, I was leading a small team developing new security protocols. By my third, I had been promoted twice and earned a reputation as a rising star in Seattle's tech community. My salary allowed for a comfortable apartment with a view of Puget Sound, a far cry from my cramped studio. Then came the breakthrough that would change everything. While working on a client's ransomware recovery, I identified patterns that led me to develop a new algorithm for predictive threat detection. What began as a specific solution evolved into a revolutionary approach to cybersecurity, one that could identify potential attacks before traditional systems even recognized a threat. "This isn't just an improvement," Rachel said after reviewing my work. "This is a paradigm shift." Vertex wanted to integrate my algorithm, offering a bonus and a promotion. But something in me, the same instinct that had propelled me out of Connecticut, knew this was bigger than one company's product line. With Rachel's reluctant blessing and Jordan's enthusiastic support, I took the biggest risk of my life. I left Vertex to found Sentinel Shield, my own cybersecurity startup built around my predictive security framework. The early days were terrifying. My savings depleted, my dining table serving as office and meeting space. Jordan, now a UX designer, contributed countless hours. My former roommate, Lynn, introduced me to her venture capitalist cousin. Aiden and Marcus from my study group joined as employees, working for equity when I couldn't yet afford competitive salaries. We believe in what you're building, Marcus told me. And in who's building it? Our major client came through Professor Morgan's network, a financial services company tired of reactive security. Their adoption led to others, each success building our reputation. Within 18 months, Sentinel Shield had grown from a concept to a company with 20 employees and a real office. Tech publications took notice. Sentinel Shield, How Brianna Miller is Revolutionizing Cyber Defense, read the headline of an industry magazine feature. The article included a professional photograph of me, confident in a blazer, standing before a wall of monitors, a far cry from the insecure girl my family had dismissed. The morning the article was published, I received an email from a distant cousin. Saw your feature in Tech Innovators. Is that really you? Everyone here is talking about it. Everyone. The word hung in my mind. Did that include my parents, who had deemed me unworthy? My sister, who had stood by silently during my rejection? The cousin didn't say, and I didn't ask. Instead, I channeled my energy into growing Sentinel Shield. Our next round of funding valued the company at $40 million, a figure that still seemed surreal. I was now the CEO of a rising tech company with a team that respected me and clients who sought my expertise. Personal growth paralleled my professional success. Therapy helped me process the trauma of my family's rejection. You've built yourself from the ground up, my doctor observed, but there's still a part of you waiting for their approval. She was right. Despite everything, some childish part of me still craved validation from the people who had hurt me most deeply. It was my most closely guarded vulnerability, admitted only to Jordan and Dr. Bailey. Jordan had become my rock, his steadfast support never wavering, even during Sentinel Shield's most stressful periods. Our relationship deepened into something I'd never thought possible for someone like me, unconditional love based on who I truly was. Marry me, he proposed on a rainy Seattle evening, kneeling in our living room with a simple sapphire ring. Be my partner in everything, the way I want to be yours. I said yes through happy tears, the band sliding perfectly onto my finger. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere completely. Life settled into a fulfilling rhythm of work I loved and relationships that nourished me. I had created a chosen family of friends and colleagues who valued me for exactly who I was. At 37, Sentinel Shield was becoming a major player in cybersecurity with offices in 3 cities and over 100 employees. I had everything I'd ever wanted, except closure with the past that still occasionally haunted my dreams. Then the elegant cream envelope arrived, bearing a return address from Greenwich, Connecticut. The invitation sat on my coffee table for 3 days before I could bring myself to open it. Its heavy cream paper and gold embossing screamed old money, the world I'd left behind. Finally, on a rainy Sunday morning with Jordan beside me, I slid my finger under the seal. Together with their families, Heather L. Miller and Andrew James Thornton III request the honor of your presence at their marriage ceremony. My sister was getting married, and somehow, after 10 years of silence, I had made the guest list. Are you okay? Jordan asked, his hand warm on my shoulder. I don't know, I answered honestly. The invitation felt like a surreal connection to a life I'd almost convinced myself had been a bad dream. Why now? That question haunted me. I carried the invitation to my next therapy session with Dr. Bailey, placing it on the small table between us like evidence in a trial. What does it mean to you that they've reached out now? She asked. That's just it. I don't know if they're actually reaching out, or if this is some sort of obligation. Maybe the groom's family insisted on inviting all relatives. I ran my fingers through my hair, might tell for deep anxiety. Or maybe they've heard about my success, and suddenly I'm worth acknowledging. Dr. Bailey leaned forward. What would it mean to you to attend? I hadn't allowed myself to fully consider that possibility. Closure maybe? Or reopening old wounds? I honestly can't decide which is more likely. We spent the hour examining my options. Remember, Dr. Bailey concluded. Attending or not attending are both valid choices. The important thing is that you make the decision from a place of strength, not from that wounded 18-year-old's perspective. Jordan, as always, offered unconditional support. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, he promised that night. If you want to go, I'll be by your side. If you want to ignore it completely, I'll help you burn the invitation in dramatic fashion. That made me laugh, easing some tension. I think I need to talk to someone else about this. The next morning, I called Megan and James, the friends who had become my chosen siblings. They arrived that evening with wine and fierce protectiveness. Absolutely not, Megan declared. These people threw you away. They don't deserve your presence at their perfect little society wedding. James was more measured. What do you want, Bree? Not what you think you should want, but deep down what feels right. His question cut through the noise in my head. I want to stop wondering, I admitted. I want to look them in the eyes as the person I've become. Not for their validation, but for my own sense of completion. Then go, he said simply. But go on your terms. My curiosity got the better of me. That night, I searched online for Heather's fiancé. Andrew James Thornton III, heir to Thornton Technologies, one of the largest data management firms on the East Coast. His father sat on multiple tech company boards. The connection to my industry couldn't be coincidental. Do you think that's why they invited me? I asked Jordan, Andrew's LinkedIn profile illuminating our faces. Because of potential business connections? Jordan considered this. It's possible, but does the reason really matter? You'd be going for yourself, not for them. He was right as usual. The why behind the invitation was less important than what attending might do for my own healing. Still, I hesitated. The thought of facing my parents sent waves of anxiety. Would they act like nothing had happened? Would they try to take credit for my success? Or worse, would they still see only the awkward, unattractive daughter they'd written off? The RSVP deadline loomed. I drafted and deleted a dozen responses. Then, 2 weeks before the final RSVP date, a message appeared in my professional email, the one listed on Sentinel Shield's website. Not my personal contact. Brianna, I hope this reaches you. It's Heather. Please come to my wedding. There's so much I want to say to you. Call me if you're willing to talk before then. Her phone number followed. No explanation for 10 years of silence. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Just a request, or was it a demand, for my presence? I took the email to Dr. Bailey. What strikes you most about her message? She asked. That she contacted me through my company email, not even trying my personal accounts. And that there's no apology or even recognition that reaching out after a decade of silence might require some explanation. Dr. Bailey nodded. Those observations tell you something important. What boundaries would you need to set if you decide to attend? That question became my guide. Over the next week, I crafted a mental framework of boundaries, what I would and wouldn't accept, how I would respond to potential scenarios, when I would leave if necessary. Jordan and I role-played possible interactions. Brianna, you look different, he said, mimicking my mother's backhanded compliment. Thank you, I practiced with serene confidence. Life in Seattle agrees with me. By the time I finally checked will attend on the RSVP card, I felt prepared, not for a happy family reunion, but for a controlled encounter on my terms. I added +1 next to my name, drawing strength from knowing Jordan would be with me. I chose not to call Heather. Whatever she wanted to say could be said in person. I would give her that opportunity, but I wouldn't make it easy. As the wedding date approached, I prepared meticulously, selecting a dress that made me feel powerful, a deep emerald silk that complemented my now confident posture and the highlights in my styled hair. The woman in the mirror bore little resemblance to the girl who had fled Connecticut a decade earlier. The night before our flight, Jordan found me on our balcony, staring at Seattle's skyline. Thoughts? He asked, wrapping his arms around me. No, I said, leaning into his embrace. Just reminding myself who I am now. CEO. Innovator. Loved. Whatever happens tomorrow, they can't take any of that away from me. No, he agreed, kissing my temple. They absolutely cannot. As our plane took off the next morning, I felt a strange sense of peace. I was no longer running away from Greenwich. I was choosing to return on my own terms, as the woman I had become despite them, not because of them. Whatever awaited me at the Westbrook Country Club, I was finally ready to face it. The Westbrook Country Club hadn't changed. Still the epitome of old money New England. As our taxi pulled up, I felt a strange calm, like I was merely a guest at a venue where I happened to have history. Ready? Jordan squeezed my hand. As I'll ever be, I replied, smoothing the emerald silk of my dress. The ceremony wasn't until 4, but we'd arrived early for the pre-wedding gathering, my choice, to face my family in a more casual setting. We followed elegant signs to the garden terrace, where waiters circulated with champagne. The scene was exactly what I'd expected. Connecticut's elite, air kisses exchanged, men in linen blazers discussing the stock market. It was like stepping into a time capsule. What I hadn't anticipated was that no one would recognize me. "Are you friends of Andrew or Heather?" asked an elderly woman I distinctly remembered as my mother's bridge partner, Mrs. Ellison. "Family, actually," I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. "Oh, from which side?" she pressed, clearly trying to place me. "The Miller side. I'm Brianna." I watched her face. It remained politely blank. "How lovely. I don't believe Heather has mentioned you." Of course, she hadn't. I'd been erased so completely that even those who'd known me since childhood couldn't connect the confident woman before them with the awkward girl they dismissed. Jordan and I moved through the gathering, a strange sense of invisibility surrounding us. I overheard snippets of conversation about Heather's perfect match and the merger of two great families, because that's what this wedding really was, just as my parents had always planned. Then I saw them, my parents, standing near the stone balustrade overlooking the golf course. My mother, Catherine, still slender and blonde. My father, Richard, his hair gray, but his posture still radiating authority. They were speaking with a couple I didn't recognize, champagne flutes in hand. The picture of WASP success. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached, Jordan's hand at the small of my back providing silent support. "Excuse me," I said, stepping into their conversation circle with practiced poise. My mother turned, her social smile firmly in place. "Yes, hello," she said pleasantly, no flicker of recognition in her eyes. "It's been a long time," I said simply. Her expression remained blank for 3 more seconds. Then I saw it, the moment of realization dawning in her eyes, followed by shock and something like fear. "Brianna," she whispered, the champagne flute trembling slightly. My father turned at the name, his practiced smile faltering as he took in my appearance. "My God," he murmured. "Surprise," I said, with a calm I didn't entirely feel. "It's good to see you both. This is my fiancé, Jordan Reed." Jordan extended his hand with perfect composure. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. Congratulations on your daughter's wedding day." My mother had recovered enough to shake his hand automatically, social training overriding shock. "Thank you," she managed. "If you'll excuse us, I need a private word with Brianna." The couple they'd been speaking with exchanged curious glances, but moved away tactfully. My father looked like he'd seen a ghost. "What are you doing here?" My mother hissed, once they were out of earshot. "I was invited," I replied simply, pulling Heather's invitation from my clutch as evidence. Quite a surprise after 10 years of silence, but I thought it would be rude to decline. "You look different," my father said, his eyes scanning me as if trying to reconcile the woman before him with the daughter he'd rejected. 10 years will do that," I replied, "as will building a successful life on your own terms." My mother's eyes darted nervously around the gathering. "This isn't the time or place for whatever this is. Heather's wedding day should be perfect." "I couldn't agree more," I said with practiced ease. "I'm simply here as an invited guest to celebrate my sister's marriage. Nothing more, nothing less." "Brianna," my father began, his businessman's composure returning. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss," I interrupted gently. "The time for that conversation was 10 years ago. Today, I'm just another wedding guest." I took Jordan's arm. "If you'll excuse us, we should mingle before the ceremony." As we walked away, I could feel their eyes boring into my back. The hurdle had been cleared. I'd face them without falling apart, without seeking their approval, without apologizing for my existence. The knot of anxiety in my chest began to loosen. "You were magnificent," Jordan whispered. The ceremony itself was predictably perfect. White roses, a string quartet, Heather resplendent in a designer gown that probably cost more than my year of college. I watched from the middle rows, deliberately choosing not to sit in the reserved family section despite my technical right. Heather was still beautiful, more polished now, with that slight hardness around her eyes that came from years in competitive social circles. She didn't see me during the ceremony, her focus entirely on her Princeton-educated CEO-in-waiting groom. The reception was held in the grand ballroom, transformed into a fairy tale of crystal and flowers. Jordan and I found our assigned table, far from the family tables, I noted without surprise, and made conversation with Andrew's distant cousins, who seemed pleasant enough. I was returning from the restroom when it happened. The moment I came face to face with my sister for the first time in a decade. She was alone in the hallway, making her way back to the reception. Her step faltered when she saw me, her perfectly made-up face registering shock she couldn't hide. "Brianna," she whispered, as if seeing an apparition. "Hello, Heather," I said calmly. "Congratulations. It was a beautiful ceremony." She stared at me, taking in my appearance, my poise, the confident woman who bore little resemblance to the sister she'd last seen. "You came," she finally said. "I wasn't sure you would." "Your invitation was unexpected," I replied. Something flashed in her eyes, guilt, perhaps, or embarrassment. "You look amazing," she said, changing the subject in typical Heather fashion. "Really transformed." "Life has a way of doing that," I replied, "especially when you're forced to build it entirely on your own." She flinched slightly. "Brianna, there you are, darling." A handsome man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo approached, placing his hand on Heather's waist. "Andrew Thornton III, the groom himself. Your mother is looking for you. Something about photos with your grandparents." He noticed me then, offering a polite smile. "Hello there. Andrew, this is..." Heather began, but I extended my hand. "Brianna Miller. It's a pleasure to meet you, Andrew." The ceremony was lovely. He shook my hand warmly. "Thank you." "You know, Heather," he asked with genuine curiosity, "I don't think I've met your friend before." The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Heather's eyes widened slightly, a silent plea I couldn't quite interpret. "Actually," I said, meeting my sister's gaze directly, "I'm her sister." Andrew's expression shifted to confusion. "Sister," he frowned. But Heather always said she was an only child. The moment crystallized around us, time seeming to stop. Heather's face drained of color beneath her makeup. "Did she?" I said softly. "How interesting." "There must be some misunderstanding," Heather said quickly. "Brianna and we've been estranged for many years." "It's complicated." "Estranged." Andrew looked between us, genuine confusion on his face. "I had no idea." "There's a lot you don't know, apparently," I said, keeping my voice gentle despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "But today is your wedding day. This conversation can wait." Andrew, to his credit, seemed genuinely disturbed. "No, I want to understand. Why didn't you tell me you had a sister, Heather?" Heather's perfect composure cracked. "It's a long story, Andrew. My family, we had a falling out with Brianna years ago. It was painful and I didn't talk about it." "A falling out," I echoed, unable to let such a sanitized version stand. "Is that what we're calling it when your parents disown you and tell you you're not worth investing in because you're the ugly duckling?" Andrew's expression darkened with each question. "Is this true, Heather?" She couldn't meet his eyes. "You don't understand how it was. Brianna was different. Difficult. She didn't fit in because I didn't meet your beauty standards." I asked quietly. "Because I was interested in computer science instead of social climbing." "Because you made everything so hard," Heather burst out, years of defensive justification breaking through. "You could have tried harder to fit in, to be like the rest of us. Instead, you judged us all for caring about appearances and connections while benefiting from the privilege they provided. I was 18, Heather, a child seeking my family's love and support. And now look at you," she said, gesturing to my polished appearance. "You clearly figured it out eventually. You're successful, beautiful by conventional standards now. You didn't need us after all." "That's not the point," Andrew interjected, his voice tight with controlled anger. The point is, you lied to me by omission, but still a lie, about something fundamental, your own sister. The door opened then. My father entered with an artificial smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everything all right in here? Guests are asking for the bride and groom. No, Richard. Everything is not all right, Andrew said, using my father's name with new coldness. I've just learned some disturbing things about how your family operates. My father's facade slipped momentarily before he recovered. Family matters can be complex, Andrew. But today is about celebrating your union with Heather, not relitigating old disagreements. Is that what you call disowning your daughter? An old disagreement? Andrew asked. The library door opened again, this time revealing Jordan and Andrew's father, James Thornton too, a distinguished man with silver hair and shrewd eyes. Everything all right, son? The elder Thornton asked, taking in the tense scene. Actually, no, Andrew replied. I've just discovered that my wife has a sister she never mentioned. Brianna Miller, apparently. The family disowned her years ago. James Thornton's eyebrows rose slightly. Brianna Miller? Of Sentinel Shield. The question hung in the air for a moment before I answered. Yes, that's me. Recognition dawned in his eyes. Your predictive security algorithms are revolutionizing the industry. We've been following your company's progress with great interest. My father's expression shifted from dismissive to calculating so quickly it would have been comical in another context. Brianna has done quite well for herself, he said, as if he'd supported me all along. Without any help from you, Jordan noted, speaking for the first time since entering. In fact, despite your active hindrance. Young man, you don't understand family dynamics, my father began. I understand human decency, Jordan interrupted. And from what Brianna has shared, and what I'm witnessing now, that seems in short supply in your family. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. James Thornton looked between his son and the Millers with growing concern. Andrew, he said carefully, there are 200 guests waiting. Whatever the situation is, perhaps it can be addressed after the reception. Andrew turned to me, his expression troubled but respectful. Brianna, I apologize for my role in this uncomfortable situation. I had no idea about any of this. You have nothing to apologize for, I assured him. This isn't your burden to bear. He nodded, then turned to Heather. We'll return to the reception because it's the responsible thing to do. But afterward, we need to have a serious conversation about honesty and values. Heather's perfect wedding day expression had crumbled entirely. She nodded mutely, tears threatening to spill. As everyone prepared to return to the reception, my mother approached me, her voice low. Was this your plan all along? To ruin Heather's wedding day with ancient history? I met her gaze steadily. No, Mother. I came because I was invited, against my better judgment. The truth emerging isn't my fault. It's the consequence of years of lies and erasure. You've changed, she said, her eyes assessing me in that calculating way I remembered so well. Yes, I agreed. I have, but not in the ways you think. My worth didn't increase with my success or appearance. It was always there. You just couldn't see it. Jordan and I returned to the reception. We stayed for another hour, long enough to be polite, but not so long as to prolong the discomfort. As we prepared to leave, Heather found me near the coat check. You couldn't just let me have this day, could you? She asked, voice trembling with emotion. I didn't come to disrupt your wedding, Heather. I came because after 10 years, I thought maybe there was a chance for reconciliation. I should have known better. So this is my fault, too? Like everything always was. No, I said gently, but it's not mine either. The truth was always going to come out eventually. I'm sorry it happened today, but I didn't engineer that moment. She was quiet for a moment, vulnerability breaking through her perfect bride facade. He's so angry with me, she whispered. He values honesty. That's not a character flaw, I replied. What happens now? She asked, suddenly sounding like the little sister I'd once known. That depends on you, I said, and on whether there's anything real left between us to salvage. I handed her my business card with my personal number written on the back. If you want to talk, really talk, call me. But only if you're ready to be honest about the past. As Jordan and I left the Westbrook Country Club, I felt lighter somehow, as if putting the truth into the open air had released a weight I'd carried for a decade. Whether anything would come of this confrontation remained to be seen, but for the first time, I had faced my family on my own terms. Not as the rejected, ugly duckling, but as the woman I had fought to become. Our hotel room felt like a sanctuary after the emotional intensity of the wedding. I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the bed, mentally and physically exhausted. "You were incredible today," Jordan said, loosening his tie. "How are you feeling?" I stared at the ceiling, taking inventory of my emotions. "Strangely peaceful," I finally answered. Not the closure I expected, but a kind of release. Like I've been holding my breath for 10 years and finally exhaled. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in weeks. We flew back to Seattle the next morning, returning to our normal lives, or so I thought. 3 days after the wedding, my phone rang with an unfamiliar Connecticut number. I answered cautiously. "Brianna, it's Heather." Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, lacking the confidence that had always been her hallmark. "Hello, Heather," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Can we talk? Really talk, like you said?" The vulnerability in her voice surprised me. Thus began a series of conversations that gradually rebuilt the bridge between us, not to what it had been in childhood, but to something new and cautiously authentic. Heather revealed that her perfect life had its own prison of expectations and appearances. Andrew had insisted on couples therapy after the wedding revelation, forcing her to confront truths she'd spent years avoiding. "I was jealous of you," she admitted during one call, the confession clearly difficult for her. "Everyone thought I had everything because I was pretty and popular. But you had this brilliant mind and inner strength. You didn't need their approval the way I did. I would have traded my brilliant mind for their love in a heartbeat back then." I told her honestly. "I know. That's part of what I have to live with now." Andrew, it turned out, was raised with very different values than the Millers, despite his similar socioeconomic background. His parents emphasized integrity and personal achievement. The revelation about how the Millers had treated me had shaken his faith in the family he'd married into. My parents were a different story. My mother called once, her approach typically strategic. "Your father and I have been thinking," she began without preamble. "We should have dinner when you're next in Connecticut. Your company has made quite a name for itself. Is that why you want to reconnect, Mother? Because I'm successful now?" I asked directly. The pause before her answer told me everything. "We're proud of what you've accomplished," she said, evading the question. "I'm not interested in a relationship based on what I've achieved rather than who I am," I told her. "If you want to be part of my life, you need to acknowledge what happened and take responsibility for your part in it. The past is the past, Brianna. Dwelling on old hurts is unproductive. Accountability isn't dwelling. It's the foundation of any healthy relationship." We reached an impasse there. My father never called at all, though I heard through Heather that he'd been following Sentinel Shield stock with great interest. I established clear boundaries with both parents. I would engage with them only to the extent that they respected my terms. This meant limited contact with my mother and virtually none with my father, who couldn't bring himself to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Sentinel Shield continued to thrive. Our security platform expanded into international markets, and industry leaders began citing my algorithms as the new gold standard. The company grew to over 200 employees with offices in Seattle, Boston, and London. Professional success was gratifying, but the personal growth of the past year felt even more significant. Working with Dr. Bailey, I finally internalized the truth that had taken me so long to realize. My worth had never been contingent on my family's approval or my physical appearance. It had been within me all along, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. 6 months after the wedding, I established the Eleanor Miller Foundation, dedicated to supporting young women pursuing careers in STEM fields. The foundation offered not just financial assistance, but mentorship and emotional support, the combination I wished I'd had at 18. "Your grandmother would be so proud," Jordan said at the foundation's launch event, squeezing my hand as I prepared to address the crowd of donors and scholarship recipients. Looking out at the young women who reminded me so much of my younger self, brilliant, passionate, some still struggling with confidence, I felt my grandmother's presence strongly. "Success isn't measured by how you look or who approves of you," I told them during my speech. "It's built day by day, choice by choice, as you honor your authentic self and the gifts you alone can bring to the world. 1 year after that fateful wedding, Heather came to visit me in Seattle alone. Her trip was without Andrew or the protective bubble of family. We walked along the waterfront, the space between us filled with years of unspoken truths now cautiously voiced. I'm trying to figure out who I am, apart from being the pretty one or the perfect daughter, she confessed. It's terrifying. You've had a decade of practice at being your authentic self. I'm just starting. It's never too late to begin, I told her. The hardest part is taking that step away from others' expectations. Our relationship would never be the uncomplicated sisterhood of childhood dreams, but it had evolved into something honest, a connection between two adult women with shared history and separate paths, finding common ground in their imperfect journey. My journey from rejected family member to self-assured woman hadn't followed a fairy tale trajectory. There was no moment where my parents suddenly recognized their mistakes and embraced me with open arms. Real life rarely offers such neat resolutions. Instead, I'd found something more valuable, the ability to define family on my own terms, to create connections based on mutual respect and authentic acceptance. The little girl who had once desperately sought her parents' approval now understood that the most important approval had always been her own. The woman who had fled Connecticut with nothing but a suitcase and determination had built not just a successful company, but a meaningful life filled with people who valued her complete self. You know what I've realized? I said to Jordan one evening as we sat on our balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in gold and pink. 4 years, I was waiting for them to realize they were wrong about me, to validate that I was worthy after all. But that was never the point. What was the point? He asked, genuinely curious. That I never needed their validation in the first place. My worth wasn't something they could give or take away. It was always mine. I just needed to claim it for myself. Looking back at the long road from that painful family dinner 10 years ago to the life I'd built, I felt profound gratitude for every struggle that had shaped me. Each rejection had pushed me towards self-reliance. Each obstacle had built resilience. Each moment of loneliness had taught me to create genuine connection. The true transformation hadn't been from ugly duckling to successful entrepreneur. It had been from a girl who measured her value through others' eyes to a woman who recognized her inherent worth and lived accordingly. I often think about that moment in the country club hallway when Andrew asked, "You know her?" And I replied, "I'm her sister." The simple truth had power, not because it disrupted Heather's perfect day, but because it affirmed my rightful place in my own story, a place no one could erase or deny any longer. What defines family for you? Is it blood connection? Shared history? Or is it something deeper, the choice to see and honor one another's authentic selves? I've learned it's the latter. My chosen family, Jordan, my friends, mentors, and colleagues who supported me, embodies what family should be. And if blood relatives want to be part of that circle, they're welcome, but only if they can participate with the same authenticity and respect. Have you ever had to redefine family in your own life? What boundaries have you created to protect your sense of self-worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. I truly want to hear your stories and your wisdom. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button to join our community of resilient souls building lives on their own terms. Remember, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it. It's affirmed by your courage to live authentically despite them. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, hold your head high and know that you are enough exactly as you are.